Gold. That's the Nothing Personal Word of the Day. It's Tuesday, March 17th, 2026. Gold. As in the gold medal. As in tonight in Miami. At the ballpark formerly known as Marlins Park, currently known as Lone Depot Park, will crown a winner to this edition of the World Baseball Classic. And what a tournament it's been. The United States of America, led by Captain Aaron Judge, will be at the ballpark trying to finish what they felt has been their destiny from the minute the team was put together by General Manager Michael Hill. And they are playing, as they expected, Team Japan. No, excuse me. That's what was expected. Except Japan got eliminated in the quarterfinals. Three-time winner of this tournament, led by Shohei Ohtani this year, eliminated in the quarters by a team from Venezuela, a team that had never been to the World Baseball Classic Finals, a team from a country that has been in the news and not the sports pages, a team from a country filled with players, all of whom play with a sense of pride and patriotism that makes just about any other country seem like patriotism light. If you want to talk about pressure, you talk about the men from Venezuela playing baseball, knowing that it's not just important for the Baseball Federation. It's important not just for the citizens who like baseball. It's important for the geopolitical climate in Venezuela as a way to somehow make the impossible come true, where sports as the true distraction becomes something that makes people feel good about themselves and their situation, even when the game isn't happening. You see, most sporting events can draw a sense of pride to a moment, going back to the Miracle on Ice in 1980, all the way through the Dream Team in 1992, and places in between, from gymnast Mary Lou Retton all the way back to Olga Komenici doing it for Romania. The question is it still possible in this day and age to get that much pride, that much patriotism in a world that's become less civil, in a world that's become less interesting for people to in any way associate pride with sports? Here comes Venezuela. From the minute they take the field, it's not just about the crowds off the field or the people on the streets in Miami or in the country of Venezuela directly. It's about what's going on in that dugout. It's about our old friend Miguel Cabrera, the hitting coach of Venezuela, who would tell you that having won a World Series is one thing, which he did. But if he could bring home the gold medal for Venezuela as a hitting coach, as a member of the staff, the look on his face, the feeling in his heart lets you know what's what and who's who, which in and of itself has become a bit of a point of controversy as player after player tells you that they choose World Baseball Classic over World Series. And I tell you, from my perspective and the perspective of every person in the dugout in the United States would tell you that a World Series would be greater than a World Baseball Classic gold medal. But you want both. Aaron Judge, the captain of Team USA, came out and said very clearly that the atmosphere is unlike anything. But in terms of actually winning, we'll wait to see what the captain says should the USA prevail. But in order for Venezuela to get there, they had to get past, I guess you could call them, Coca, the hottest team in the Classic. I don't know why you'd say that. They were the only undefeated team. They were the team that had an espresso maker in the dugout. They were a team with marginal major leaguers, but major leaguers nonetheless. They had a number 7 starter in Michael Lorenzen, who was the piggyback starter to Aaron Nola, the erstwhile number 2 starter in Philly, who last year pitched about like a number 5. But Nola had a wonderful World Baseball Classic and was the choice to start by manager of Team Italy, who said that he made that decision himself with his gut. And I don't want to be a party pooper here, Coca, but the decision was not made by him nor his gut. You had the Philadelphia Phillies completely involved in whether Nola would start or not, and exactly how many pitches Nola would go. More on that when we get to tonight's game and availability in the bullpen for the U.S. But the choice to go with Lorenzen to back up Nola in order to not overexpose the somewhat weaker Team Italy bullpen was a choice, a great baseball choice once permission was given by the Rockies, because it doesn't matter who would start in today's final for Team Italy, because if Team Italy is not in the final, there is no starter needed. You've got to win today. That was the view. That's a big league move, and Italy looked like they had a chance to pull off the upset. They were up 2 runs, 7 outs to go, then 2-1, Suarez with the home run. They get into the 7th inning, and all of a sudden, a Kansas City Royal player who you've never heard of, named Miguel Garcia, who's hitting over 460 during this World Baseball Classic, who signed a 5-year, $57 million deal with the Kansas City Royals, whose cousins with Ronald Acuna, having grown up within a square block of him in Venezuela, was able to tie the game on a single. Ronald Acuna scores. They add 2 more, and before you know it, Venezuela's up 4-2. Acuna got the single. I thought, what did Garcia get the go-ahead? Are you sure that Garcia did not get the RBI? All right, start over. 4-8-6-9. Dang it. Oh, that's right. Acuna got the infield hit. David, all right, we'll do that again, Coca, to make it clean, because we don't want Meadowlark to have any sort of dirty anything while we're here in Miami. 4-8-6-9. I was watching the game, literally, on the big screen, no less. Venezuela came back to score 3 runs in the 7th inning to take a 4-2 lead when Acuna beat out an infield hit in the hole at shortstop, scoring Miguel Garcia, who had gotten a hit earlier in the inning. And all of a sudden, you hand the ball over to Chicago Cubs closer Daniel Palencia, blowing 100, and the crowd is going crazy. You see, the Miami crowd was not there for any other reason but to watch Venezuela. There were, Coca, however, some scattered Japanese fans. The camera showed them from time to time because a package was purchased by Japanese tourists or locals who figured Japan would certainly be in the semifinals, if not the finals. So you buy the strip, you don't let the ticket go to waste. So smattering of Team Japan fans, a gaggle of, the gaggle's too big a word. There weren't a gaggle. It wasn't a gaggle. It was a smidge of Team Italy, and then you had about 34,000 people there cheering for Team Venezuela. The atmosphere at Marlins Park has been a subject of great discussion. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Hear me now and understand me later. Do not blame anyone in the Marlins front office. Believe me, I'd like to blame Jeter, but he's gone. But I can't even blame him for that. There is no way to transist. Is that a word? To transist? That's not even a word. Am I okay? Hi, my name is David Sampson. There is no way to convert Venezuelan fans, whether they're from Miami or not, to become Marlins season ticket holders, much like you're not going to convert anyone who went to the Astros WBC games into becoming Astros season ticket holders. It's a one-off event. It's like setting up a sales booth at a Joel Osteen seance at Marlins Park, or better yet, at a Guns N' Roses concert. The conversion ratio is about Blutarski's GPA. Not for lack of trying. You set up a table, you have a smattering of salespeople, put on a suit and tie, and you try to do some business. It is absolutely unfair for players or for media or for the union, which we'll get to later in the show, for anyone to impugn the Marlins or any other MLB team for the reality that Marlins Park atmosphere against Lorenzen and the Rockies is totally different. It's never going to change. The reason why you do the World Baseball Classic is that you want positive discussion around baseball. You want the ability to go into broadcast negotiations with networks who are getting a boost in March pre-tournament basketball. You want there to be some sort of tentpole event every few years, whether it's in March or in July over the All-Star break. Spoiler alert, we chose March over July because we did not want to give up the jewel event, the All-Star game. We could not shut the game down for 2 weeks in the middle of the season, which is the discussion for the Olympics, might I add, where they've agreed that if Major League players do play, it'll be a 1-week shutdown and get that tournament done in a week. But even that would be too long for most executives. None of this takes away from what we saw at Marlins Park last night, which was the joy of the Venezuelans. The crowd partying after the game, after the post game. You could still hear fans screaming as though they had won the tournament, to which a normal American would say, man, that's a lot of premature celebration. They haven't even won yet. And then I realized I'm looking at it wrong. To celebrate every step of the way is to enjoy your life. To take the little victories as they come is to recognize that losses could be coming later, so why would you not celebrate incremental victories? And Venezuela did just that. Their turnaround time is very quick. Tonight they will play the United States, and we do not know anything other than Eduardo Rodriguez will pitch against Nolan McLean. That's right, your starting pitcher, as I told you it would be. Not Garrett Crochet, not Tarek Skubal, not Paul Skeens, not anybody other than who they knew before the damn tournament started. Nolan McLean of the Mets. What you should look for are the following 3 things tonight. How short the leash is on Nolan McLean is about the size of my 65-inch frame. Small. If McLean gets a little traffic on the bases in inning 2, you are going to see Mark DeRosa fly out to the mound faster than you see a mosquito on someone in the marsh. But who follows him? What's the bullpen availability? Can Bednar pitch again, having pitched in the semis? What about Mason Miller? The lockdown United States bullpen is not yet decided because the WBC officials from the U.S. had to speak to every single MLB team who had a player in the U.S. bullpen to discuss and get approval for usage tonight. As of press time, I like saying that, Coke. I've never gotten to say that. As of press time, Mason Miller has not been given permission to pitch tonight by the San Diego Padres. They are waiting for Mason Miller to wake up today and tell them how he's feeling. The funny part is, we don't actually care what a player says when we ask them how he's feeling, because Mason Miller, like any person with any competitive bone in his body, will tell Craig Stammen, the new manager, or will tell A.J. Preller, the old, not quite yet erstwhile general manager, and the owner of the team, I'm good. Give me the ball. I can go an inning. I can go up to 30 pitches. I feel right. Pitchers say that. It's like going to the mound, Coca, and saying, hey, how you feel? You good? You got one more in you? You don't ask that question because pitchers always say they got one more in you. You go to the mound knowing the move you're going to make. I love it in the postseason when a manager comes off the mound, incidentally, and says, oh, I was going to pull him, but then he convinced me to keep him, like Max Scherzer all of a sudden is everywhere. Don't you take me out. Give me a break. Managers, top step of the dugout, know exactly what they're doing. So we'll find out who's available in the bullpen because they're going to need it. It's going to be a bullpen game. Venezuela's bullpen, deep, blowing a hundo left, right, and center. Sharp sliders, commanding fastballs. Will their teams let them go back-to-back? My guess is that you will see a stronger Venezuela bullpen than you'd expect, even though it's back-to-back. My guess is that Mason Miller will get permission to be on the mound as the final pitcher in the top of the ninth. my guess is the United States will win this game. It's not because of the great United States lineup. Side note, all of you who criticized the B lineup, you're going to see Will Smith in there catching instead of Cal Raleigh tonight, would be my guess. Will you see Henderson playing instead of Alex Bregman? That is a tougher decision for Michael Hill to make. Why do I say it? Because Alex Bregman has played in championship games, World Series Game 7s, big games, a clutch player. But Henderson has clearly, including the home run in the semis, been better this World Baseball Classic. That decision will be an interesting one. Smith over Raleigh is done. That is not an interesting one at all. What do I think will happen as a result? Oh, by the way, P. Crow Armstrong, he's no longer the backup center fielder. He's going to play tonight. Byron Buxton, good, overpaid. Everyone in Minnesota despondent. We can't lose him. We lost Correa. We got to sign him. Started game 1 of this World Baseball Classic, and pretty much PCA has been one of their best hitters in a lineup where Harper has been horrific. Judge has been hitting the ball, but it's been a lineup that has not been able to bunch runs. They have not been able to perform offensively the way they expected, to just clobber people the way the Dominican did. But as you get closer to the end of a tournament, you see that pitching and defense does it. So which bullpen will outshine the other? Well, my nothing personal pick of the day tells you that Team USA will finish what it started. People will call it a redemption for Mark DeRosa, but he's not redeemed. It will be an accomplishment, a terrific accomplishment for Team USA, for Michael Hill, for Mark DeRosa, for the commissioner, for a successful tournament, for Noah Garden and all the people who have put it together this year, for all the people who were a part of this 20-plus years ago when this was designed. When Team USA wins for the first time since 2017, it will be a coronation. Do I feel badly for the people of Venezuela? No. They had a great run. The run ends tonight. It sets them up to be in the Olympics in 28 and to be the defending finalist come next WBC. I told you they'd beat Italy, by the way, and they did. So we are now up to 16-18. I'm carrying those 2 Super Bowl prop bets like some 800-pound weight on my back, Coca. It makes me crazy you make me count that. I will not forget. Those prop bets, anytime touchdowns. Darn it. Bruce Meyer, he's good content for us. I thought Tony Clark, when he left the Union, that'd be it, that Bruce Meyer would be buttoned up. Because every time Tony Clark spoke, it just gave us an opportunity to talk about the Union. It gave us an opportunity to talk about collective bargaining. It gave us an opportunity to talk about player comforts and all of the needless things that Tony Clark loved to talk about. Tony Clark is gone. Literally gone. I mean, not literally gone, figuratively gone. You will not hear peep out of Tony Clark publicly unless it's with a paragraph that includes the word indictment. So Bruce Meyer, the interim director of the Players Association, has taken over the duties of the executive director, which means that he's got to talk. But when he talks as a lawyer, as a negotiator, I would have expected him to choose his words way more carefully. But it turns out he now has taken over as chief crap spewer. Listen to this. Right before the game the other day, Bruce Meyer said, and this is him talking, he said the WBC has been fantastic. The fan engagement has been terrific. It's been great baseball and a great thing for the sport. The players I've spoken to are thrilled to be here representing their countries. Sounds great. That's when you stop. That's a perfect quote. But no, all of a sudden when you're interim executive director, you can't help yourself. You have to keep going. Quote, and in this market in Miami, you can see the fan interest in baseball, which unfortunately is perhaps not maximized by the franchise here. Shrapnel to the Marlins. Yeah, I took it personally. Yeah, I shouldn't have, actually. It has nothing to do with me. What's the message that he's saying by discussing the Marlins and their inability to not be at the bottom of MLB attendance above only the two teams who played in minor league facilities? Is that because he's telling you about what it would mean to have a cap and a floor, and what it would mean to have teams who are below the floor have to find a way to spend money to reach to a floor? Is he discussing the fact that Major League Baseball would tell the union, we can't get those teams to a floor without changing all of revenue sharing, and we don't have the votes to move more money from the haves to the have-nots to make them even more competitive as have-nots against the haves? That floor is going to have to be lower. We cannot capture 7 teams who are below a floor that you're proposing. To which Bruce Meyer would then say, I'm not proposing a floor because I'm not allowing a cap. So then why is Bruce Meyer talking about the Marlins this way? Because the union's position is that every team at the bottom of the payroll structure should not be at the bottom. The union's argument falls flat because of math. In any league, at any point, even with a cap, there are teams at the bottom. It's the old story that our friend John Skipper talks about. Do you know what happens at the end of a baseball season, or basketball, or football? Yes, sir, the league is 500. No matter how you slice it, there will be teams losing 90 games, no matter what. It does not mean because you're at the bottom of payroll that there is something that needs to be done to make that team spend money that it clearly does not have. You never hear Bruce Meyer talking about teams that have to increase their payroll when those teams are losing money operationally, because he knows what teams are losing money operationally. He knows very well what the Marlins' payroll can be. And for him to impugn them at this opportunity prior to the WBC and the excitement makes no sense to me, other than the fact he's doing his job. Bruce Meyer is going around meeting with teams. We've told you that. He came out of the Red Sox meeting hot. I'm talking HOTT, like Roman Anthony Adonis hot. I know Rob Manfred gave a quote at some point saying lockouts are a good thing. It's certainly not a good thing. It's the ultimate pressure tactic. They don't have to do a lockout when the agreement ends. That's Bruce Meyer talking to the Boston Globe. Small market teams in our current system have tremendous resources to improve rosters. We have proposals to make that we think are going to make that even better. We want to incentivize and reward teams that compete. Who does that sound like, Coca? Does that ring familiar at all to what Scott Boras was going around and talking about? All of the 26 ideas that he had on how to make things more competitive, not using a salary cap? Bruce Meyer, the talking head of Scott Boras, it can't be true. That's what we thought was last year, last time. No way. But let's examine that statement. Let's examine the fact that he said, and I quote, "We have proposals." Coke, I can't do this wait to see, but I really want to. Because we won't know the truth, except I'll get it for you. I'll have Pablo find out, if Pablo Torre finds out. The odds of Bruce Meyer making any sort of proposal to Major League Baseball are the odds of me leaving this show today at 6'4". 0.00. I love the fact that Bruce Meyer is out there trying to get you, the media, and you, the audience. God, he thinks you're all stupid. For him out there saying, oh, we've got great proposals that we're going to go to the table with to explain to MLB what's what and who's who. Well, listen, Haas and Pfeffer Incorporated, at a negotiating table, when you are the union, you are waiting for a proposal from management. You are not going to initiate a proposal. As a matter of fact, they'll go through the entire negotiation, and I'm not sure the union will do anything other than respond to proposals made by MLB. will be able to dissect that fact. But the reason why Bruce Meyer would say it is that he needs your help, audience. He needs your help, media. You have to carry his water publicly for some unknown reason, thinking that that will do one thing to sway owners to do something or propose something that they don't want to do or that hasn't been properly explained to them by the Labor Committee and Dan Halem and Rob Manfred, the ramifications of any such proposal. And for him to say that small market teams have tremendous resources, what's missing from that sentence? Is that just a comment on revenue? Because it certainly isn't a comment on operations. It's not a comment only on payroll. Reminder, Bruce Meyer knows the payroll of every team. Bruce Meyer has the audited statements of every team. Just keep in mind that information is withheld from you because the truth hurts their position. When there are teams that simply cannot do what the top 10 teams can do, that's a fact of life. This segment is presented by MoneyLion. Download the MoneyLion app or visit moneylion.com to learn more. MoneyLion. Make money easy. Well, that's what NBA owners are saying right now as they are licking their tenderloins, thinking that they have a chance to get not just one, but two expansion fees of $10 billion each. Is that the going rate these days for the NBA to go from 30 to 32? To add a team in Las Vegas and Seattle, to find an ownership group and a community willing to write a check, count them, count the zeros, because it ain't 7. The thing about $10 billion is that when you split it 30 ways, you can do a quick math there, Coca, and you're going to get, let's just say they distribute it all. Let's say that you get a check for $500 or $600 million as a team. What are the NBA teams doing with that money? Make no mistake. Expansion fees as part of the CBA in the NBA do not count as revenue. Not $1 of those expansion fees goes to the calculation of the salary cap. Not one player will see $1 from that expansion fee. Instead, what NBA owners do is they pay down debt, they invest in some capital projects, whether it's a renovation of an arena, whether it's the renovation or building of a new arena, whether it is building the area outside of your arena, like trying to do what Atlanta did with the Battery. All of that money is so hard to turn down, even though Adam Silver knows deep down, as well as the other owners in the NBA, that going to 32 teams in what is already a watered-down league from a talent perspective, what is already a league with enough teams that do not have the players to compete, when there are enough teams that are not interesting as road draws because there are not enough superstars to go around. The conversations within the NBA that will take place, Ray expansion, never discuss these points. It is not relevant to owners when they explore relocation, what will be the dilution of the on-field product. You will have members of the commissioner's office telling owners, I'm not sure we have enough to go around. And owners, when they think, because I've spoken about expansion with owners for 25 years, it simply does not come up. The math is this. How much money am I getting today, and how much money am I giving up tomorrow to get that money today? NBA expansion is the same decision as when you win the lottery and decide to take the pay me everything in full now versus give me $1 million for life. How do they do the calculation? Well, they take the NBA TV deal, they take the national revenue, They divide it by 30. They know exactly how much they get on an annual basis over the term of the NBA national broadcast deal. Then they split it by 32. They say, oh, well, that changes the math. Do we make up for it by taking $500 million today? Here's what NBA owners do not take into account. If you knew that you could do what the NFL is currently doing by pre-negotiating huge increases to start earlier than projected, when you've got to split those increases pre-contract terminating, you're not calculating that. But here's the difference in expansion today in this media environment versus yesterday. When you are an owner and you are trying to get an expansion team, you get it coming and going. The contract that you sign in order to become an expansion team is going to be very carefully constructed. There will be provisions in any expansion contract that will address the greatest fears of the current 30 owners, that they are leaving money on the table, too much of it, by inviting 2 extra people to sit at their picnic table. But the balancing act is, at what point do you quash the desperation by Seattle and Vegas to have NBA teams? What provision of the contract becomes too much for those new owners to handle? That's the negotiation. That's what the NBA announced that they are starting to do and that they are voting on to start to do at owners' meetings in the next week. They are voting to explore relocation. When you explore relocation, take it from me, we explored relocation. It does not expansion, damn it, 4869. To explore expansion. When you are a part of exploring expansion, you are not only studying the markets, you are learning the revenue, the pro formas in the markets, but also the pro formas of the league and what impact those pro formas could have on the existing teams. The teams this year in the NBA during the exploration process will be told by Adam Silver and the NBA, here's what we think. We will get a copy of these financials to you. Then individual teams, CFOs, presidents, owners, they will pressure test these financials. They will decide amongst themselves, I don't believe this. I think the NBA is going to do even better going forward, or I think the NBA is going to do worse going forward. They will do a downside case, a base case, an upside case. And when they're done with their calculations, that will inform the fees that are required by the incoming expansion teams. When you read today, it could be anywhere from $7 to $10 billion. If you ask anyone inside the NBA, they don't have even the ask yet. Forget the bid. LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, Miriam Adelson, we have no idea what it will take to put a team into the oversaturated market of Las Vegas. We have no idea what it will take to get a team back in a place where the Bennetts took it from knowingly, having bought that team from Howard Schultz Coca and moved it to Oklahoma City. Who didn't see that coming? So what I'm interested in as we watch the vote of the Board of Governors, which will happen next week, to explore expansion, I'm interested to understand what the parameters will be, because we're not going to hear that announced. When Adam Silver gives his press conference, I guarantee you all that he will say, he didn't listen to me on the Clippers or aspiration, but this time he will. I guarantee that all Adam Silver says coming out of those owners' meetings is today was a monumental day for the NBA as the owners agreed to explore expanding the National Basketball Association to 32 teams. That's it. When there's a question from the crowd, well, which cities? We are looking at Seattle and Las Vegas. How much? We have not yet discussed or determined that amount. If he says we haven't discussed it, he'd be lying. If he says we haven't determined it, he'd be telling you the truth. But there will be a press conference coming after those owners' meetings, and it won't be about Kawhi Leonard. What a great distraction from the job at hand that is being done by Wachtell Lipton, that is being thought about every day by Adam Silver. What better way to do the bait switch than to give a premature talk about expansion and then to even give you a year? They could start in 28, 29, so we better get going. Well, having thought about expansion with Major League Baseball and knowing that Major League Baseball wants to get to 32 teams as well, it is not a quick process. The work that has to get done to figure out which cities and how to maximize money for your current owners takes a hot second. I'm here in Miami, and I'm still going to watch a movie. My streak got broken, Coca, back in September. I can't even say what I used to say for probably 1,400 or 1,300 of our episodes of Nothing Personal since October of 19. I don't watch a movie every day anymore. But I promised you I'd watch War Machine with Alan Ritchson and Dennis Quaid, and Coca, I did. It is a made-for-Netflix movie called War Machine. How it got a 6.4 on IMDb can only be explained by some funky relationship between Ted and IMDb. It can't be that 30,000 reviewers came in and said, this is a 6.4. Trust me, you don't need to see Dennis Quaid. If you want to watch Alan Ritchson because he looks so good, which he does, go watch Jack Reacher. This movie is ridiculous. There is some sort of War of the Worlds war machine that is somehow killing people. But the good news, as you would well imagine, Alan Ritchson doesn't die. How he doesn't die? Shocking. It is beyond even warmongers to look at and say, oh, this is cool, let's work on that, I'm in. No. Pass. You're welcome. The movie for tomorrow, there is no show tomorrow, so you want to talk to Samson. We'll be back Thursday from New York with Coca in the second hour as he finishes the week with us every single week now. We will be reviewing Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. Spoiler alert, I watched it. Spoiler alert, please watch that movie before Thursday's show. Good luck, have fun, don't die. One of my favorite things has always been being on the competition committee in baseball. I really was honored to be on that committee. I love thinking about rules. I love thinking about changes. And yes, traditionalists would always get angry. And yes, I had to listen to the Hall of Fame greats who I love, whether it's John Schuerholz or Joe Torre, be hesitant in certain ways and very aggressive in other ways. It is a complicated deal when you're dealing with new rules in Major League Baseball. You're dealing with history, a greater history than any sport. You're dealing with scrutiny, greater scrutiny than any other sport. You really have to think about rule changes. MLB has a new competition committee after the last CBA that includes players, except the players have no vote. They pretend they have a vote, but there's more owners than players on the committee. Let's say 7 owners and 6 players. Therefore, MLB has a controlling vote over any vote on the competition committee, which is what it was like before players were added to the competition committee. But it's really good for PR to have players. You throw in an umpire, you throw in some executives, and before you know it, you think it's fair and that you're getting input from everybody. Trust me when I tell you, when MLB wants something, that's what happens. The way you implement rule changes is you test rule changes and the impact they will have on the game, on the flow of the game, on the results of the game, on the time of the game. You can't do that at the major league level. It would be the equivalent of you walking into a business meeting or a sales meeting having not rehearsed or thought about what to say or understand what you're selling. It's the equivalent of a lawyer going in front of the Supreme Court to do oral arguments, having not gone through exactly what he, she, or they are going to say. And believe me, they do. There is no seat of your pants. MLB is the same. They don't do anything by the seat of their pants. They test everything in the minor leagues. Everything. There are things tested every year that don't even get enough press. Thank God for Jason Stark of The Athletic, who will go through every single one and then talk to you about what's going on in the far reaches of Netherland. This year, there's some cool stuff that I want you to watch out for. Number one, what bothers you when you watch a game? I mean, don't get to me on hot dog lines or, your custard fell on the floor or you slipped and fell and wanted to make a quick 10G. What bothers you? Time of game? Ingress? Egress? No. What bothers you is the check swing. How annoying is it that catchers, pitchers, batters are like always pointing to the first base umpire or the third base umpire, and then you've got to hope that the first base or third base umpire is actually paying attention. And then you say to yourself, what the hell is the rule? Is that a swing? Don't know if that's a swing. Did his wrist break? Did the bat break the plane? Was it an effort to swing? Did he pull back fast enough? Listen, these are not teenagers. You cannot use the pull back fast enough method. So what are they testing? They're testing robot technology that will tell you what is a check swing and what is not. Oh my God. Think about it. It's perfect. You don't need the first base umpire and the third base umpire to pay attention because they'll have nothing to do with it. There'll be some sort of technology that when a batter violates the rule, and let's just pretend it's the 45-degree angle thing, and if you don't know math, it doesn't matter. Just picture the angle of the bat to your hands and where the bat is in the zone. But whatever it is, it's measured. It is perfect. It has nothing to do with the size of the strike zone. It has nothing to do with the size or the weight of your bat. You can be Soriano or you can be Aria. It doesn't matter. It is based on angle. They're testing that. That's going to come to Major League Baseball because that's needed. They're doing something else that I don't think is coming to Major League Baseball, but I got to tell you, I like it. They're looking at changing the location of second base. Now, don't get excited. They're not moving second base to right behind the pitcher's mound. They're not moving second base to behind first base or in the shortstop position. But they are considering moving second base about 9 inches closer, making the distance between first and second and third shorter. It's basically compressing the diamond. When you compress the diamond, what are you doing? Think about it. You're making the distance from first to second and second to third shorter, therefore making the ability to steal bases easier. First, we had the expanded bag, which we say protects ankles, both at first base, but everywhere. They didn't make home plate that much bigger, I got to tell you. But anyway, I digress. Can you imagine the beauty of the running game, of the excitement that was supposed to happen with the expanded bags, with the disengagement rule saying, hey, when a guy throws over twice, the next time he better get him or you get a free second base, which means as a runner, you get a longer secondary lead. This is amazing. Well, it didn't really lead to an increased running game the way that MLB thought, the way it tested. So therefore, they're trying to look at something else. I love the idea. It's not quite Little League, but I love the idea of the game in motion. I love the idea of the hit and run and not waiting for the 3-run home run because it's boring. We want action. We want more action time than any other sport. Do you know, Coca, by the way, which sport has the least action time? Do you happen to know that off the top of your head? What's your guess, Coca? Yes, it is. The NFL. Isn't that amazing? I think you get like 11 minutes of actual stuff happening in an entire NFL game. But man, we love it. But MLB is trying to get as much action as possible. So this second base movement is being tested. Now, it's going to be way down in the lower levels of the leagues. It's going to be something that will take years to get to the major leagues, if at all. Most of the things that are tried don't ever make it to the major leagues. But you gotta love that standing pat is the only thing you can't do, and the commissioner knows it. The owners know it. You're always going to try more and more and more. Take a look at the disengagements. Do you know the fights that we had on the competition committee about disengagements? Oy vey. Should it be 3? Should it be 4? How many batters timeout should we have? What about mound visits? What counts as a mound visit? We spent hours going through every possible iteration, saying what would be hurtful to the game, but good for the flow. What would be hurtful to the competitive nature of the team or of the safety of a player who needs a timeout or a pitcher who needs a break? How do we weigh that against the desire for more and more action? What are your thoughts on that? And you land on a number, and then you game it out, actually, by having games. Well, it turns out that 3 engagements is too many. It's not helping any player get a larger secondary lead. Not that players really understand secondary leads the way they used to, the way Ichiro tried to teach them. What MLB is saying is, you know what? Screw it. Let's change it to 1. Good luck. You get 1 disengagement, and don't give me your BS about your pitch clock doesn't work. Have you ever seen a pitcher's pitch clock not work when they are dealing? Pitch clocks tend to break only when they're getting rocked, when they need a breather and don't want to waste a mound visit. We're going to clean that up, baby. No more of this wasting time by pretending. It's like the NBA pretending, oh, he's hurt. That's how we're going to use our 24-second injury timeout. Forget it. You get a 20-second timeout. Don't even pretend you're hurt. I don't care if the pitch clock's broken, which it's not, by the way, because a bunch of people have it in their ear. I love when the shortstop's like, I know the pitch, and the pitcher's like, can't hear it, can't hear it, can't hear it. So they're going to test that, and it's going to work. The number of disengagements is going to go down to 1. They're going to change batter timeouts for sure. Get rid of those. You don't need them. It's a waste. Stay in the box. Giancarlo Stanton was always used as the example. That guy doesn't move. That's what you want. You get in the box. You don't play with your gloves. You don't play with your uniform. You don't play with your crotch. You stand in there, and you're in the hitting position every time. DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook for live betting, is built for March. The tournament is unexpected. Rewards are guaranteed. DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering the most generous rewards in the market. With DraftKings, the #1 sportsbook for live betting, you're not betting what might happen, you're betting what's happening. New to DraftKings? Bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code SAMSON. That's code SAMSON to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets instantly. All in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours. Hey. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. I love being in Miami for myriad reasons, frankly. The number one thing that I love about it is not the convenience of the elevator ride at the El Sur Hotel, which is amazing in order to get to the studio. There's frankly not even a reason to go outside, except the weather's perfect, but I still don't go outside. But the thing I love the most is I get to be around Dan Le Batard, and I get to do shows with him, which is my honor. Because I'm only in media because of Dan. As a matter of fact, he gets all blame and all credit for any bit of the success of Nothing Personal. And when I'm here, he likes to join me. And so he is here with us doing an extra bit of show because we've got 4 hours of show coming up here very shortly. But Dan, thanks for always waking up early, which I know you do, and for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for all that you do for the company. I don't know if the people listening to this know the difficulty of what you do every day, doing this by yourself for a couple of hours. Coke is here, but having to carry the majority of microphone load. The people in this industry who have done this that I know this way, Colin Cowherd, Jim Rome, they all go full-blown crazy by the end because the only voice in their head is their own, and you've got enough going on in your life combined with this. So I'm happy to come in here and help you a little bit. I hope you ask all the difficult questions because I think your audience knows you cover a lot of subject matter that other people in sports won't touch.
Yeah, just before we get to all of that, and I want to start with maybe the most controversial question. How did that craziness manifest itself? Just so I know what to look for.
I mean, if you're doing 3 hours a day, I've had this conversation with Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith, right? They did a 2-hour show, but there was 20 minutes of news every day. So their significant others and their wives were like, holy shit, you talk a lot more at home because this is so much a part of our identity. We spend so much time caring about it. It's probably true of me as well. I talk more now than I used to talk, even though I do an ensemble show. And in the case of Cowherd, he's just talking to himself the entire time. He's not even talking to somebody else. He doesn't have, I mean, he has now somebody who's sitting there, but for many years, he's just talked to himself. And so you just become kind of crazy.
Like narcissistic.
Yeah, but also you love the sound of your own voice. Yes, yeah, narcissistic as well.
But I've always loved the sound of my own voice.
But you came in narcissistic. This is like the movie The Lighthouse. You spend enough time in here, you'll become Defoe. You'll become.
I always wanted to be Pattinson. Okay, we have something that came up yesterday, and I moved to Miami in 2002. That's when we met, right when I got here. So it's been 24 years. And you get a playbook when you move to Miami. And I was given this by some of the great businessmen of Miami who I would go meet. And they all said the same thing.
Rule number one.
There's rule number one. It's like Fight Club. You don't talk about Cuba. As a New Yorker, I had never talked about Cuba.
Well, as you, who likes to talk about whatever he pleases.
To me, Cuban Missile Crisis, is that what you mean? Like Castro? What do you mean, like, don't talk about it? And I was told early on, if you're ever asked a question, if you're ever at a business lunch, wherever you are, if you're ever asked your opinion of anything in Cuba, you do not answer. And so that's how and I've been that way after the Marlins, which I left in 2017 unceremoniously, and in the 9 years since, we don't talk about Cuba much on the show because
one
I'm
of my
still scared.
favorite things that engulfed you of all the controversies and all the silliness is that your big free agent manager, Ozzie Guillen, did a Time Magazine interview the first week that he's here, right before the season, in which not only is he talking about Cuba, it's not just talking about Cuba, it's saying precisely the wrong things to your customer base about Cuba. Like, so I believe he just said,
people don't know that.
I like Fidel Castro or something.
I have great respect for Fidel Castro, which is on the list of things that you're told you can't have.
But I'm just saying, if you tell me, hypothetically, what's the top funniest thing that he can't say under any circumstance, he said it to begin his career.
We told him that after when we had to suspend him live on the franchise. We didn't even do it in 2 takes. We didn't pretend. We suspended him. We didn't know what to do. Can you imagine getting the call while I was actually hosting a Seder for Passover?
You were so far ahead of your time on that Showtime franchise reality show. So you were 15 years ahead of your time on that.
It was something. But I want to talk about Cuba with you because now you can actually do the talking, which would help me understand what's happening. Because President Trump did something yesterday, and I did not know how to form an opinion or how to react because I don't want to be the knee-jerk reactor where whatever he says I disagree with or agree with, because that seems to be the binary view of him these days. But he literally said, I do believe I will be having the honor of taking Cuba. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I can do anything I want with it. How do you hear that quote from him?
I mean, he's grotesque, okay? The language that he uses is undiplomatic. That is part of the charm to his base. But let me flip the question on you before I answer it. How did you feel when you heard Trump talking about turning Gaza into the French Riviera and putting hotels on a strip of land that isn't his?
So I pictured the French Riviera, and I pictured Trump buildings the way you see them on the west side of New York when they're apartment buildings, which he didn't develop, but he sold his name to it. So I pictured it as a real estate transaction.
And so how did you feel about how grotesque that is commercially? Because that's not capitalism, that's narcissism. And I understand what you're saying as the preface. Just because he is a corrupt felon who's immoral in every substantive way doesn't mean that everything that comes out of his mouth is something that you should instantaneously disagree with. My parents are still alive in their 80s, and they've wanted to see and felt pretty hopeless about seeing a free Cuba the entirety of their lives. So when we took Venezuela, to use his word, a lot of people, this is a very Venezuelan community, a lot of people dancing in the streets because that regime toppled. And I imagine something similar would happen here. I would be happy for my parents that they would live long enough to see a free Cuba. I would just like it handled in a way that has great care and isn't just about putting hotels with his name on it on the shores of a paradise beach.
So there's a lot of consequentialists, and I am one of them. And there's a lot of one-issue voters. And a lot of friends of mine who are Jewish are one-issue voters as it relates to Israel. And also people I'm not friends with. And they vote Trump because of what he's done in Israel and how in favor they are of everything that's going on there. And there's a lot of one-issue Cuban voters in Miami that I learned about when I was here trying to get votes and trying to figure out how to do things. It was very Cuba-related. Do your parents hear this? And do they then wipe away any other issues, including the narcissistic commercialism? Because from Israel's standpoint, there are people who don't care about that fact. They just like the result.
Cubans are Republican because the Republicans have done a very good job of making Cuban citizens in this country have a different set of rules than everybody else. Like, we have favored status in this country. Haitians get here, get a foot on land, they've got to go back. Cubans, until recently, when they changed some of this stuff, when they normalized relations, Cubans have had preferred status because the Republican Party has done a good job of taking care of Cubans, or at least making it look like they're taking care of Cubans. My pain on this one's not, it's not emotional, it's borrowed, right? So it's not mine. I'm American. I was born in this country. My parents identify more as Americans than they do as Cubans because of how proud they are that this country granted them that particular status, which is welcoming in a way that's different. It has been historically different than it is.
I didn't know that about your parents.
Yeah.
They think they identify first as Americans. So are they really not involved or interested in the outcome as it relates to Cuba?
Oh, no, I'm not saying that they don't have. Look, I'm not saying that they don't care about Cuba. In fact, when I took a cruise with my brother and my mother, and we went along the outskirts of Cuba, and she started crying as soon as she saw it because she had her childhood stolen. She had her land stolen. That's a scar that doesn't leave. But they are proudly American because they've been given freedoms in this country that they don't have in Cuba. And when Trump talks about taking Cuba, which is in such a dilapidated state, at least in part because of our embargo on Cuba, that
There's
makes
a blackout now.
Yeah, I mean,
there's
it just
no
makes
electricity.
They're stuck in the 50s, David. They don't have anything. The things that Cuba has are said to be healthcare and education. I don't know how old that information is, though, because I don't know how much good medicine they're getting in Cuba. Those people have been on a rotting island suffering for a long time. It's oxymoronic, right? You live on a paradise resort island type of place that's not a lot different than Miami, except this one's stuck permanently in the 50s. You still see Russian Ladas in the street. The car, it's ancient. It's an ancient fossilized city that has been allowed to rot. An island's been allowed to rot, and the stories, kids don't have balloons, so you'll see kids with condoms blown up because they got a condom, and that's how kids play with balloons. You've got rationed food. You were mentioning blackouts. So anything that helps the people of Cuba be better off than they are under this regime, it's something that's going to be welcomed by Cubans. And I'm not sure that they care very much about the consequences beyond that, as long as it topples the regime that has, ruined several generations of good Cuban living.
I'm sorry, but this makes it sound like you are okay.
Well, I wish it weren't this person doing it, right? I wish it were America I don't like any one man deciding what it is he's just going to take all over the world without any sort of checks and balances from media, from Congress, from the American system of governance. I don't like any one man, especially one with these kinds of grotesque interests, who's not actually interested in the people of Cuba in any meaningful way other than how does he get stuff that he wants? Like it is really grotesque. It's craven.
But pre-Trump, there would have been a time. I'm trying to do the math here, Dan, because the Miami I lived in, whether it was Obama, Clinton, whether it was Bush, doesn't matter who the president was, you would have given anything for that one man at that time to topple Castro.
But it's not one man, David. It's a country doing it on behalf of democracy, not hotels to turn Gaza into the French Riviera or turn Cuba into, a resort community so that he can continue to line his family's pockets because he keeps using the government as something that is just a personal piggy bank.
But what would Cuba have been used for had it been taken or freed from Castro 15 years ago or 20 years ago? It was all about businesses who decided, as a baseball team, we were maneuvering behind the scenes to be ready to take Cuba the minute we were allowed to. We wanted to be the Major League Baseball team that had the relationship, which we weren't allowed to have, wink, wink, before. We were hoping that once Castro was gone, that we would be first boots on the ground, literally, and we prepared for that.
So you could turn it into what the Dominican Republic would become before anyone else got their hands on it. I remember the Toronto Blue Jays were talking to Omar Linares, the great Cuban third baseman, about playing him only in home games. Not in the United States, but in Canada, so that they could get around the embargo because you guys wanted the players so badly.
And we wanted to help them escape. I mean, Jose Fernandez escaped from Cuba.
Also for your own interests, not in the name of not in the name of toppling communism, but just pure capitalism.
It's always in that interest, though. There's no other way to actually effectuate change. So my argument has always been that you can poo-poo capitalism, but that is the instigator of change that everybody wants. People don't just do it out of the goodness of their heart, as much as we'd love the world to be that.
Most people don't, agreed. Most people don't do things out of the goodness of their heart, but it's not everyone that's in public service to just line their pockets. Like, that's not everyone. There are people who try. Now, they might be contaminated by the system. They might get disillusioned, but there are many people who enter into public service with other interests other than just helping themselves.
So I didn't meet anyone in Miami that way. The people in Miami in the business community.
I don't think those are your circles, though. Aggressively business circles. You're not going to find a whole lot of Brother Teresa's in there.
Okay. So you're saying the Brother Teresa's would somehow trump the business circle and get to Cuba first if it were not done by Trump. And I'm saying that I don't see that as the path.
It doesn't matter why it is that Cuba gets freed, right? These people have suffered long enough. It has been excruciating. There is something cruel about them being this close to America and not having any of its privileges. The people of Cuba think of Disney World as a fantasy land that is aspirational. They think of America as sort of all Disney World. So anything that gets the people of Cuba to stop suffering, because they don't deserve that, that's happenstance there. I think often about how easily it would have been for me and my brother, both of whom made their careers in the arts, both of us, to not ever have those freedoms, possibilities, dreams, because my parents didn't leave Cuba in their early teens. And I always make this correction with
They didn't
people.
know each other when they left?
They did not, no. They left. My mother left thinking she'd see her mother at 15 very soon after. She didn't end up seeing her for 10 more years after that. And the distinction that I make with them, they're not immigrants, they're exiles. My parents came from money in Cuba. They left strictly for political reasons. They left strictly because it was clear that freedom was falling.
I did not picture Poppy as coming from money. I did not. He doesn't act that way.
His father and all their brothers were a famous orchestra in Cuba. I still meet, very few remaining, but I still meet old people who see my name and immediately know that that's my grandfather's. They had a big band in Cuba.
Did you ever go to Cuba?
I did. I visited with an Olympic baseball team that was traveling over there on exhibition, and I went I went all over, but I went to my mother's house, which she spoke of in great terms as this palatial place, but it was stuck 40 years ago, and it hadn't been taken care of. And the uncle who was living there gave me a breakfast. And I ate heartily, and at the end of it, they explained to me that this was like their rations for a good amount of time. I was fairly mortified at the amount of food that they had given me when I didn't know at the time that they were on rations that way. And so I was a bit heartbroken seeing what my mother remembered was clearly in a state of disrepair, and that was 30 years ago. There's been 30 years. Everything in South Florida, everything here is battered by the weather. You can't keep things outside. So that entire island has been battered by the weather for 30 years.
One of my favorite things about doing show with you is that we get to touch on a lot of topics. But I find, like yesterday's show, for people who listened and watched, and thank you for doing that on DraftKings Network, wherever you get your shows, on Dan's YouTube channel, LeBatardAF.com. And Nothing Personal with David Sampson. Tell me, we get on a subject, and then it seems like you want to get off it quickly. I wanted to talk about yesterday the First Amendment issues that are going on. And did you feel that it was too serious? Is that why you were worried that the audience would not want to hear that, your audience? Because it's something that fascinates you, and it should. And it's the most important issue, I'm sorry to say, facing our country, and there's so many issues, but what's going on right now with media and what could be coming soon to a theater near you. We were right there, and then you let it go.
My reason for that is twofold. One is my audience is very used to me talking about that subject matter, and I've got to pick my spots judiciously on how often I do that, because I can wear people out because of how passionate I am about specifically that, and how heartbroken I am that I care about something in a way that's disproportionate to the way that a lot of people think about, for example, journalism. Don't make it free speech, but journalism specifically, I don't think I have a greater professional heartbreak than watching what it is that has happened to the media, which acts as a checks and balances on government that I thought was a core American principle that we all sort of agreed with, and then to see it deteriorate because people aren't caring about it the way that I care about it, I can wear out the audience with that. And then the other thing is, our show has to have every once in a while the monkey's throwing feces. Like, there has to be the accents and the hijinks and the silliness because it's a short attention span theater. And the gift that we have, the thing that makes us most unique in the sports media landscape, is not just the number of people that we have, but it's the amount of time that they spend with us. And so the secret sauce of that candy is that we're not in any one thing for too long. But I probably erred in not discussing it with you, so let's do it now.
Yeah, I'm just curious where, you talk about journalism. You say journalism, I think, Pablo, this to me is a First Amendment issue. It's a freedom of the press issue. And what I tried to talk about, and we touched on it, Nothing Personal yesterday, I did a segment on it, but I'm fascinated by what comes after. If we're actually part of a state-controlled media, which we talked about Cuba, it's the perfect sort of segue, where information is given to you in a way that is distilled to serve one purpose, and that is the purpose of the government, whatever the government is. And it's up to the community to decide where they're going to get a counterpoint, and then you get the bubbles in the pockets of the dissenters who will use like a ham radio to talk to you about what we label as now conspiracy theories, but in fact it's just a different lens to look through truth. You said the word yesterday, which wasn't the word I was thinking. You said McCarthy. I don't think our audience focuses on that enough because they're too young, but there's like 10% of my audience that thinks about that, and maybe a smaller percentage of yours. That was a period of time where it was much more arts-centric. That's not where we are now. This is actual diplomacy. This is news. This is war. This is financial. All the information that we should require as a democracy to make decisions about what we do, that's what is actually being crushed at the moment. And it's being said out loud by Trump and his cabinet.
The reason that I cited McCarthyism is because the idea of the government fear-mongering with stuff that wasn't true in order to move people as an entity, I was trying to find the parallel between then and now, where you can see the government working this overtly to create a fear around something that obscures truth. Because when we're talking about either journalism or freedom of speech, what I'm interested in is the truth. Like, that's the part that I'm trying to protect, making sure that people can get at the truth. And you imagine my perspective on this. Growing up in a Cuban household where all I heard before I started studying journalism was grandparents, parents, uncles, aunts talking about, when you get a newspaper, it's filled with falsehoods. It's just government propaganda. Everyone knows that the newspaper that we're getting at home is full of shit. All of it is just nonsense. I grew up listening to that, but what I'm getting on my doorstep, what I'm delivering on lawns as a paper boy as I'm starting my career, is the opposite of that. It is a carefully vetted set of facts meant to aspire to objectivity and fairness, centered on getting at the truth. That's what I studied.
But didn't we always have that? The National Enquirer is what comes to mind when I was growing up. There are certain publications that that are funny, that aren't true, and I always laughed at the lawsuits.
But there was only one in Cuba. There was Grandma. It was just one newspaper. It was the state-run newspaper.
So you're saying that in Cuba there was no opportunity to hear any other point of view?
No, there was just everything you were getting. It was the equivalent. Now they can distort it with AI, but it's the equivalent back then of I grew up hearing so much about propaganda, which is just a newspaper filled with lies.
So it doesn't have to be. My memory is that propaganda, or my thought is that propaganda doesn't mean lies. Propaganda is when you take a set of facts and you manipulate it in a way to make sure that everyone sees that set of facts the way you do. It's more like an argument, and I am not pro-propaganda, and I am not in favor of state-controlled media.
No, but you're pro-walking that line between truth and lies in a way that business people do, where they can get away with, well, I just gave you the set of facts that represent sales for me. It's just sales. It's not lying. It's I'm taking the facts I want, showing those to you, and then I'm trying to get what I want.
But the other facts are available, and that's always been important to me. I am always happy to only give the information that I want to give, but it's not lying. It's not misleading. What it is meant to persuade you to do something. It's called sales.
It is misleading.
No, so when a
You're
car
leading
salesman,
people away from, yes, or sales, whatever it is. Whatever it is, it's not. Journalism is fair and objective seeking of truth. It ain't that. It ain't what you
so
just
the car
described.
salesman doesn't have to talk to you about accidents and about safety. They're okay just talking about, which is what they do, the beauty of the dashboard.
Think about the example that you're using and the people watching and listening to this. What do they think a salesman is doing? Telling them the truth? Does the person who's
that's
walking...
That's the whole point. If they know that they have to do their own research, what I want are the tools to allow people to do it. And then the way life works, if you don't do the research, you're going to get screwed. I grew up in New York City. 3-card Monte. I didn't want that made illegal. If you're dumb enough to play 3-card Monte, then I'm okay with you losing your money.
But that's how you got ahead. You were able to be a person who understood at every turn that others could be taken advantage of with a set of facts that might obscure what it is that they want and get you what you want.
Exactly. But I'm differentiating what I think is happening now, because I'm okay with exactly what you're saying if that's what was happening. What concerns me is that what Trump is trying to do is he's trying to take actual licenses away from news organizations who are not giving the news the way he wants it.
Correct.
I never needed to have everyone believe what I'm saying or say the things I'm saying. I needed the avenue to go on and get enough people to agree to go on the avenue with me. But I was perfectly understanding there were other avenues. The difference now is they're trying to eliminate every avenue.
But what I'm also watching, though, you're saying you want more people on the avenue with you. I'm watching somebody whose system of governance is not just merely to break the government. He's going consistently against what the polling shows is the will of the people in a number of different places that attack core American principles, ICE being a great example of it, and I believe what's happening with the media being another great example of it. I've got very few people on this avenue with me, though, because I don't think the grand majority of people listening to this have the time in their day to be understanding the difference between how carefully vetted something has to be for a newspaper to print it versus how easy it is to chop down with just this orange oaf yelling fake news again and again with no other moves, just attacking the media because it's an easy place to attack because people like when the media is attacked. Because on the list of people who are disliked in America occupationally, it's going to be lawyer, it's going to be car salesman, and it's going to be journalist.
Well, they all have one thing in common. And now journalism, I thought your bigger complaints, and before I want you to stay as long as you want, but you have a live show coming up soon. But think about what journalists are supposed to do. They're supposed to disseminate information, but they're trying to get you on an avenue. They're giving you information, and they are hoping that you choose to watch them and listen to them. It's what opinion makers are. It's why at the end of your show, you don't say, what was it at the end of Sports Reporters? The opinions of the panel are not those of the network, something like that. You never had that as part of your show.
No.
Because you were trying to get people when you were doing, every day you do it for 4 hours every day. You're trying to get people to be on your avenue. I just don't know that I know the difference.
Oh, but I don't do very much journalism anymore. What I'm doing every day is trafficking off of past credibilities given to me by journalism. What? I'm not. Pablo. You just said Pablo Torre. Our company Meadowlark does many different things, and our journalistic arm at the moment is Pablo Torre finds out doing the journalism. What we're doing every day is
don't say it.
Juggling and
you're going to say the feces,
spinning plates. Clown car. It's what we're doing is entertainment. Our thing has a very loose tether to journalism.
But how are you satisfied then?
Oh, because what I was doing in the previous incarnation was lonely. Writing was lonely. It was something that wasn't communal. I wasn't sharing it with people. I wasn't enjoying laughter with people. It was something that I was doing that was very rewarding.
4 hours a day.
It's fulfilling, yes, and
there's time. Isn't there time for both?
Well, but
I do 2 hours. I got time for both.
But we do enough that when you want to have the free speech conversation, I'm like, I've done this so many times already that I don't think the audience wants to hear this particular conversation again with me.
It feels different now, though. This is different. It's certainly in my life.
No, but I've been doing this conversation though since 2016 when I noticed the size of the threat that was approaching. Like one of the reasons that I'm not at ESPN, one of the reasons that ESPN does less journalism than it used to do back when we were at the height of, journalism at ESPN. ESPN chose to be a journalism company. It didn't have to be. That was a choice they made. They could have just simply been an entertainment sports programming network like that. There's no J in there. They chose to do that because, not unlike me, they decided to traffic off of journalism to get the credibility that allows them to then do all the other stuff they want.
Before you go, I want to ask, are you proud of Marlins Park? Can I get you to agree that the public financing, the deal that was made to have a baseball facility with a roof in Miami, is something now to be proud of?
I'm still not clear whether they would have lost baseball or not if you hadn't gotten that.
Where would baseball be?
No.
A pro player?
Well, but where would it have been lost? Because Tampa doesn't have a stadium, and they're still there. Teams don't actually move very often in baseball. The only time that one moved is when you moved it.
I didn't move a team.
Montreal.
Baseball moved Montreal. Stop forwarding that lie to your audience. It makes me insane, and it made
you ran the Expos, and then the Expos vanished.
No, they didn't. They went to Washington.
Okay, so that last time a team moved was when you were in charge of it.
Nope, it's not the case. I'll see you soon. It's just not the case. I can't live that down. I think Dan likes that, actually. Dan loves the fact that he can hold that over me till the end of time because it keeps, not only does he like the feces, he likes the arguing. You don't like Samson. Don't like Samson. It's bad for the show. Thank you, Dan. I didn't get to ask Dan about something, but you know what? Maybe I'll do it at his show. But I do want to mention that there's something going on in Pittsburgh. I talk about Pittsburgh, Coca, way too. It is not a proportional conversation as it relates to Pittsburgh because our statistics tell us that we've got a good audience in Pittsburgh, but it's not like a double-digit percentage audience. But when it comes to the Steelers and Tomlin or the Pirates or the Penguins, we're big Pittsburgh. Well, something happened yesterday, again in Pittsburgh. I guess when you have Paul Skeens, you got to talk Pirates, don't you, Coca? But we're talking Penguins now. Raise your hand if you're sure that you know who owns the Pittsburgh Penguins. Not a lot of people know this outside of Pittsburgh, but it's the same group of guys, people, who are partners with King James. That's right, Fenway Sports Group. They own the Pittsburgh Penguins. You may find that strange. Well, they own the Red Sox. True. They own Liverpool. True. What they do is they have a holding company called Fenway Sports Group. This is a company led by John Henry and Tom Werner, and they go around, Sam Kennedy as well, and they go around and buy stuff, and then they sell it. There are certain core assets in a portfolio that you do not sell. They're called a permanent part of your collection. There's other assets that you have in your portfolio that are called tradable assets. Short term, and I don't mean like not eligible for capital gains type of short term, like ordinary income, we only held it under a year short term. I'm talking about 4 years, 6 years, 7 years, short term. Fenway Sports Group got the Boston Red Sox as part of the three-way swap in 2002, where the Expos, as Dan misremembers, were sold to Major League Baseball, who moved them to Washington, where the Marlins were sold by John Henry to Jeffrey Loria, and the Red Sox were sold to John Henry. That was the swap. Since 2002, John Henry, Fenway Sports Group, started with the Red Sox and has expanded his empire. So it should not be a surprise to you that the Pittsburgh Penguins were not a long-term hold, a permanent part of the collection. The Pittsburgh Penguins are being sold by Fenway Sports Group. What happens when you sell a sports team? What is it that you think an owner wants when a sports team is sold? Just top 2 answers on the board. 100 people in sports surveyed. Number 1, ROI. You want a return on your investment. You want to have bought a team for $500 million and sold it for $501 million. A lot more than that. You want to take all the money you've invested into the team, including the acquisition. You want to put on it a rate of return for that money that you would have gotten if you had put it in the bank, in a savings account, and that's what you want out of it and more. Number 2, legacy. You want to be remembered as a winner. You want to be remembered as someone who was part of the community, someone who did the right thing, someone who didn't love them and leave them. I'm not saying it happens all the time. I'm not saying that you get number 2 all the time, but that's number 2. Nowhere on the list is, boy, I hope they win it next year without me. Nowhere on the list is, wow, I hope and pray that the new owners come in and don't trade players. I hope and pray that they renovate the arena or take away the home run sculpture. Those things are not part of the equation when a team is sold. Teddy Werner is the Penguins' president of baseball operations, and he spoke to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and he said, in response to an allegation, and I do view this as an allegation, and it's not that it's personal to me, but it certainly does hit home. When you say that Fenway Sports Group failed to deliver on promises to Pittsburgh, and when you accuse them of profiteering, that hits home to me a little bit because it shows that the people in Pittsburgh and the media in Pittsburgh specifically do not understand the realities of the world. So I wanted to help the people of Pittsburgh show some grace toward Fenway Sports Group because when you had them as your owner and they were doing things in your community, they were holding the torch for that period of time, making a difference in that period of time with no promises and no requirements that they do so. When you talk about the concept of corporate social responsibility, when you talk about the concept of moral responsibility, when you talk about the concept of being a good partner, being a good soldier, people call it, be a good keeper of the community asset. Side note, no one who owns a team views it as a community asset. We have to say it as a team president. I would say it all the time. I'm only here in an interim period, and I want to leave the world a better place than where I found it, and I want to leave this team in a better position than when I found it. We're taught to say it. What we really mean is, I'm sorry to tell you, is, man, did we win a World Series? Did we win a Stanley Cup? Did we sell the team for more than what it was bought for? Did we make money for the partners? By the way, it was great delivering turkeys on Thanksgiving. And I'm sorry to make it sound so transactional, because the way I feel today is totally different. The way I feel today, that if you gave me 18 years to run an organization, I'm not saying that I would be all in my feelings, and I'm not saying that I would operate it in a completely different way, but I certainly would have an awareness that maybe comes with age, maybe comes with perspective. But I certainly don't blame Fenway Sports Group when they are forced to defend their record and they have to come out and specifically say, we are extremely proud of the work that's been done to strengthen the Penguins, the investment in team performance, arena, the land around it, and the city in general. When you have to defend your record, starting with saying we are extremely proud, you don't really have to listen to what's coming up next. And the reason I say that is what that verbal crutch is meant for. It's meant to convince you of something that we're not quite convinced of ourselves. We say we're extremely proud. It's like when you talk about your kids or you talk about your work or you talk about anything, you say, I'm extremely proud because that's a reflection of the job I've done. What's happening now in Pittsburgh is that people believe that there is going to be a new owner and the new owner group is there, and it's the Hoffman family, and they're going to buy the Penguins for about $1.7 billion. Not a terrible rate of return for the Penguins, which were bought in 2021. A short-term holding. It's only been 5 years. And if you can turn 7, 8, 900 into 1.7, nearly doubling your money, in theory, depending on operating losses, then you have accomplished goal number 1. Once you've accomplished goal number 1, you start heading to goal number 2. I would simply encourage you, as you are evaluating your own owner, as you are looking at your team, forget the report cards from the MLBPA. That's all total horse hockey. Forget what we are trying to spew to you in our own league-controlled media. What I want you to think about is, do you have in your community an asset that you're proud yourself to be a part of? Whether it's tangential, whether you go to a game or not, whether you know about the team or not, is there any tether to that museum, to that sports team, to that public park? Is there any tether to it that makes you feel better about your own existence where you are? That, to me, is the goal. I want to talk about David Zaslav because, man, oh man, is he getting some heat. And I'm sorry, folks, but the people who are hating on David Zaslav because he's about to make, $750 million off the transaction of Warner Brothers being sold to Paramount and David Ellison. And how can you have a CEO making that kind of money when there's going to be firings and there's going to be cuts in departments and budgets and loss of headcount? How do you think a deal is going to work? And we've told you about this before. When you sell something, you lose control of the asset that you sold. That's the definition of what it is to sell an asset. Don't tell me that when you sell your house, you want to say in whether or not the family room gets redone or not. You want to make sure that the lawn company you were using gets used again, to the extent that you even use a lawn company. It's not yours. You have no say. You have no control. What do you do with the money you get when you sell your house or you sell your business? You don't give it all to the employees. Now, you can get some damn good press like Mark Cuban got. You write a little check here, you write a check there, you give $20,000 to every employee, you go full Taylor Swift and give the truck drivers and the tour guides and the dancers and the security guards, you give them a year's worth of pay as a bonus. Do you know how much money Taylor Swift made off her tour? Does anyone begrudge her making that money off her tour? When we did year-end bonuses, they were part of a budget with our team. But when bonuses were done at the end of the transaction, those bonuses were not part of a year-end. Those were bonuses given by an owner who say, hey, I'm going to reward people I want to reward because it's my money to do with as I please. Like when you sell your house, it is their house to do with as they please. But one of the things that's going to happen is the business owner who's selling is going to get money. Are you just upset about the numbers? Because the numbers are so outrageous, whether it's CEO comp, whether it's a backup point guard or a utility infielder or a supporting actor, the amount of money that goes into certain professions is disproportionate to the way people view those professions. It's like inversely correlated. If you knew how much money news anchors made, I think that you'd be shocked. If you knew how much money producers made, I think you'd be shocked, probably on the downside. It's always shocking to learn about what people make and why. It's always a fascination when salaries are published, whether it's what a movie star makes in a movie or what a baseball player gets paid to play baseball. We're always interested. Just think about your business. Do you not want to know what the person next to you makes? The person above you? The person below you? We're fascinated knowing what the person next to us on the airplane paid for the ticket or what the person in the hotel room next to us paid for the hotel room, aren't we? That's all this is a fascination in numbers where the numbers seem so big that you are forced into taking a position, and the media and certain people have taken positions against David Zaslav, and they've done it without any reasonable backing. Matt Ishbia is involved in something, Coca, and it made the news. I love Matt Ishbia because he's a content king. The guy is all thumbs, and as an owner, I thought we had it good with Sarver in terms of what we could talk about. Ishbia's been even better. He's been good to Pablo, he's been good to Dan, and boy, has he been good to me. He was in the news yesterday. Remember that lawsuit he's involved with, his limited partners who think that he's doing something funny with the money, trying to figure out why it is that money keeps disappearing? Well, I always wanted to know why Matt Ishbia thought money would disappear into the hands of all the players he brought into Phoenix, and it didn't do squat for him. Remember all the money he wasted with new owner-itis? Well, this lawsuit he's involved in right now is huge. If the limited partners succeed in proving that Matt Ishbia violated his fiduciary duties as it related to the partners, there was a chance that he would lose controlling ownership of the Phoenix Suns. Matt Ishbia was aware of that possibility. Matt Ishbia yesterday agreed to something called mediation. I want to explain what he agreed to. Matt Ishbia agreed not to be involved in a courtroom with his limited partners. He agreed to survive under the rules of mediation. The evidentiary rules are different in mediation than in a courtroom. The witness testimony and what is objectionable and allowable is different in mediation than what is in a courtroom. There is no jury in a mediation. There is merely a person, sometimes people, but generally a person. When you agree to something called binding mediation, you are stepping into a room with your adversary. You are explaining why you want what you want, why you did what you did. The other side does the same. Then there's a ruling by the mediator that you have pre-agreed will be binding, which means it's not appealable to a court. Much like binding arbitration. When you go before an arbitrator or a set of arbitrators, what their ruling is, there are only certain circumstances where you can appeal, and they are very limited, and they are very unlikely to prevail. In a completely binding mediation, what you are saying is that there's going to be a settlement. If you are Matt Ishbia, you do not agree to complete mediation with your limited partners unless you know you can settle that lawsuit that includes you buying out those limited partners who are there from the previous owner. They were there under Sarver. What's not being written about and discussed is that the only way I would ever counsel Matt Ishbia, to the extent I ever would counsel Matt Ishbia, is that agreeing to binding mediation has to mean that you know you've got a deal because of the negotiations that have taken place to buy out these limited partners, and that you knew all the time that there was a number that you would do that they would agree to. Because you'll go through binding mediation, and in the middle of binding mediation, there will be a transaction. Wait to see is when we tell you something's going to happen. And if it does, we'll revisit it. If it doesn't, we will too. Coca, you can book this wait to see in the document on davidsampsonpodcast.com. Matt Ishbia will buy out his limited partners and own over 95% of the Phoenix Suns before the mediator rules on the lawsuit. I am so positive of this wait to see because if Matt Ishbia went into this without understanding his exit strategy and without knowing that his exit strategy would be this purchase so he would not be in danger of losing the team, then he is absolutely moronic. And Matt Ishbia is a lot of things. Moronic is not one of them. Wait to see the Phoenix Suns deal is done. Why? It's just business. We'll see you Thursday. This is nothing personal.